Good afternoon, everybody. Well, welcome. We're very, very glad that everybody was able to join us for Casa de Mañana, Away with Words, Holiday Edition. Normally at this time of year, we would be celebrating with everybody in the lower lounge at Casa de Mañana and enjoying the beautiful views of the Pacific Ocean. But like most things in 2020, we're relegated to this Zoom meeting. But we're very glad that you were all able to join us today, and we've got an exciting presentation. So really good to see some familiar faces and some new faces as well. My name is Justin Weber, and I am the Senior Vice President for Sales and Marketing at Front Porch. Front Porch is a not-for-profit senior service provider of 10 communities here in California, and we also have active living communities, one in Florida and one in Louisiana. Casa de Mañana is one of our flagship communities located down in La Jolla, California, and I was lucky enough to be the executive director of Casa for the past 5 years. I moved into this role in March of this year, just in time for everything to change in the world. But look back on my time at Casa very fondly, and it's really good to see some familiar faces. So we're really glad that you're able to join us today. I'm just going to give you a quick brief overview of Casa de Mañana, and then I'm going to hand it off to the meat and potatoes of this program, which is Martha Barnett and Grant Barrett, co-host of Public Radio's Away with Words. And they're going to delve into the origins and history of seasonal language, and really look forward to their presentation. After their presentation, we're going to show you a brief video of Casa de Mañana, and then we're going to open it up for questions. And after questions, at the very end of everything, we'll show a little bit more of Casa, because we want to make sure that you get your taste of Casa de Mañana, even though it's virtual. I would be remiss not to thank several people who have helped set this event up today. Betty Willis, our Director of Sales and Marketing at Casa, Kelly Parsons, Karen Bixler, Jennifer Rodriguez, and Fong, their entire staff of the sales team at Casa de Mañana. I know they would love to give anybody who hasn't been to Casa or who hasn't been there recently a tour of the community. So if after this event you want to learn more, please call their team and arrange that, because that's what they're there for. They'd love to show you around the community. Brief overview on Casa de Mañana. Casa is set on 5 acres in beautiful La Jolla, California. It's comprised of really 9 different buildings that make up the Casa de Mañana community, and each of those buildings are very different from the others. And so you could see a 1-bedroom apartment, you could see a 2-bedroom villa, and all of it well right there near the village and all the things that La Jolla Village has to offer. Obviously, Casa de Mañana it's a month-to-month retirement community. Offers everything from a dining services program to life enrichment program, transportation, housekeeping, many of the amenities that come with retirement living, and so encourage everybody that hasn't been there to come down and check it out. And then I wanted to give a special shout out to the Casa residents that are on the call. It's really good to see so many familiar old faces, and it's really just good to see people around the holidays. And I wish we could be together to connect. It would really be a great thing if we could. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to ask Martha and Grant to unmute themselves so that they can get into the meat and potatoes of this presentation. We're very lucky to have both of them here today. So I'm going to shut up and I'm going to hand it over to the experts, and we'll be back here in a little bit. But enjoy the show. Take it away.
Thank you, Justin. Really appreciate
that. Yeah, I want to know which of us is. I want to know which of us is the meat and which of us is the potatoes.
I'm the meathead.
I'm definitely the potato.
I'm just thinking about Archie Bunker calling his son-in-law meathead.
Yeah.
It's nice to see everyone. It looks like we've got people from coast to coast. I know those are Zoom backgrounds, but it's nice to see the Statue of Liberty there, and we see palm trees, and that's our radio show. Actually, we're a coast to coast radio show, heard around the world by podcast, but over the radio on radio stations, public radio stations from California to New York. And one of the things that delights us is hearing these voices of people who you don't really get to hear on radio very often, or you don't get to see them on TV very often. So that's some of what we want to talk about today. As we talk about the holidays, there's so much exciting language when it comes to the holidays, right, Martha?
There's so much exciting language, and we are so excited to be here. Grant and I had such a fantastic time the last time we were out there at Casa de Mañana. I mean, we had that gorgeous, gorgeous setting, and then you have this vibrant community of lifelong learners. I think we stayed after for another 45 minutes or so, just talking to people and having all these stimulating conversations about all kinds of language. And I, in fact, took a walk down that beautiful beach with a couple of people who had been to it. So we are thrilled. We are as happy as two kittens under a leaky cow to be here with y'all again today.
I was actually thinking of the W.C. Fields quote that I prepared, although that I like that one too. I want to share this one. He always had a way with words, right, Martha?
Indeed.
W. Field, he put this in the newspaper, in the classifieds, I believe. W.C. Fields wishes a happy Christmas to all his friends but one. And so all of his friends spent a ridiculous amount of time figuring out who the one friend was that he didn't like anymore. I'm sure it was just a joke, right? Anyway,
I hope so. Yeah.
Yeah, he was good. Well, one of the things, Martha, when we get to talking about Christmas and the holidays, not just Christmas, just the end of the year getting together, no matter what religion you are, whether you celebrate or don't, the school is out, the people take vacations, and we tend to get together and we have meals. Or before the pandemic, we had people come over, and that
Right.
invites all this new language. And now we kind of invite people into our bubble, which is one of those new pandemic terms, right?
Mm-hmm,
Bubble
mm-hmm.
is the group of people that you've decided you can be safe with, right? And inviting them
Yes.
into the bubble is like this new sign of trust. You are welcome into my bubble because you're following the same rules I am, right?
Yes.
But I'm
Yes. But
thinking
so many
about those.
great.
Yeah, I'm thinking about what we do to prepare the house before they come
Oh
over.
my gosh. Oh my gosh. I remember those days, and we will have those days again. But yeah, it's a crazy whirlwind of preparation at our house. I mean, a lot, you anticipate company coming over, and all of a sudden you see all these things you hadn't seen before that are out of place or that need to be fixed. And that just ends up leading to a whole whirlwind of cleaning. What do we call that? What do you call it in your household, Grant?
Well, I like the term shame cleaning, which is when somebody says, "I'll be right over," and you're like, "Ah!" And so you're like
Yeah.
getting all the mail hidden in the drawers, and you're putting the unfolded laundry away, and you're quickly making
Yeah.
the beds, and you're hiding the dishes, or you're at least like filling the sink full of soap and water so you can hide the dirty dishes, and you're just trying to make the house look presentable, send the child into the bedroom because they haven't dressed for the day yet, Shame
Yeah.
cleaning. Quickly run
Yeah.
the towel over the bathroom sink, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, or filling the Fibber McGee closet. I always like that one.
Yeah, the Fibber McGee closet. Remember that sound effect where Jim and Marion Jordan did this great show, Fibber McGee, and he'd open the closet and it was like 2 minutes of sound effects of everything in the world falling out. And the last sound, it always seemed like it was a bowling ball going doink, 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 doink. Anyway, but yeah, so for the holidays, it's not just the pleasure of getting together, but it's a little bit of the anxiety of like, now I gotta prepare for these people to come over. Some people call it the scoop and shove, or the white tornado, or the making the lasagna. You got
I
that
like
one
that
room
one.
where you just pile stuff to make the lasagna,
Layers,
and you
yeah.
and you tell your guests, do not go in there. Don't go in there.
Right.
That's where we keep the tarantulas.
Yeah, but somehow you end up getting the house presentable, and
Yeah.
the people come over, and then you've got a whole festive dinner table of people sitting around talking about how their year has been, and sometimes politics.
Yeah. So Martha,
Yeah.
Well, you talked about how our year has been, but so we're in December, and I know that you are a great etymologist. You've got classical Latin, you've got classical Greek. And
Mm.
one of the questions we get a lot is when people discover that there's something odd about the order of the months, that their etymologies, that is, what the words mean that their month names are made from, don't match the month orders. And December is one of those that's out of order. It doesn't really belong at the end of the year. Why is that?
It doesn't. In fact, if you were doing it in Greek, I guess it would be the dodecember, which means the 12th month. December was the 10th month at one point in history, and so you get those names of months successively from September, October, November, December. If you think about that, you can see the Latin roots there: sept meaning 7, oct meaning
Mm-hmm.
8, November 9, and December 10th. And then the calendar was changed, and those names stuck around, as often happens when a word or name just gets fossilized in the language.
Yeah, and it's a heck of a fossil too, because we get those names from what, before the 700 BC period, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
they're
we're talking
very,
about
very old.
the names of our months have been in are descended from languages that are no longer spoken in the world, which is
Correct.
that's a heck of a fossil.
Right. Yeah, and I mean that's one of the things that we love unearthing on the show is just being archaeologists, word archaeologists, and dusting off those fossils because they can be really fascinating. I mean, before we
Mm-hmm.
had the Latinate names in our calendar, we had Anglo-Saxon names like the word for February, for example, is Mudmonath, which means the month of mud, which makes sense. They were much more pedestrian and descriptive.
And then December was something like Yomonath, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which meant
Mm-hmm.
Yule month. And that leads us to another word that we often get questions about this time of year. Why do
Mm-hmm.
some people talk about Yule when it comes around to Christmas? And it's a really good question. And it has a lot to do with different religious traditions kind of superimposed on one another, right? And different, of course,
Right.
linguistic traditions, since that's the area that you and I are experts in, is
Mm-hmm.
language kind of superimposed on each other. Um,
Right.
so Yule, am I remembering correctly, originally was the solstice period, right? It originally was kind of like this broad period at the end of the year that was the winter solstice. Yeah?
Right. And of course, the solstice is very significant on the calendar. I love the old English word for that. It's sunstead, like stead, like standing in, like instead.
Oh, that's
Sunstead
nice.
was the old word for solstice because it's when everything seems to stand still. You know, it's what equal? No, it's oh now. I'm trying to remember. I got married on last solstice,
You did indeed.
but yeah. So it's the shortest day of the year. I remember that, the winter solstice.
Yeah.
What else do you remember about
The
solstice?
sun is over the Tropic of Capricorn, right?
That's what
Because
it
the
is.
way
I
the
knew
Earth
there
is
was an
tilted.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's an interesting time of year anyway. So we're talking about Yule. We mentioned
Yeah.
that the Old English had a form of the word Yule. What's really interesting in the Scandinavian languages, they still more or less use that word Yule to refer
Oh yeah.
to Christmas. So they
Mm-hmm.
have a long heritage. And through the Old Norse languages, it arrived in the British Isles. And even in Scotland and the north of England today, some people still prefer the word Yule over Christmas or some other word for it because
Mm-hmm.
of that Old Norse heritage going back to 700 something AD. So we're talking centuries
Yes.
and centuries.
I think isn't there an Icelandic word for the flood of books that everybody buys during that period of time? And
Wait, that's all
you could
year,
probably
isn't it?
dig it up. Yeah. They're very literate, those Icelandic folks. But I think the
Yeah.
first element in that big long Icelandic word is Yule something.
Now I have to look it
Yule
up.
something book flood. I knew
Yeah.
this is how Grant and I are all the time.
Yeah. Yola book flood, something like that. Yola
Yeah.
book flood.
Yeah.
I'll
My
put it in.
Icelandic
I don't know if
My
everybody's
Icelandic
on
isn't what it
chat,
used to be.
but I'll put it in the chat so everyone can see it if I can chat to everyone, because it's such a strange looking word. But it's Icelandic is a lovely language to hear that hasn't changed that all that much in about 1,000 years. If you
Mm-hmm.
can read Icelandic in the modern days, you can read the ancient texts as well and get
Right.
almost all of the meaning. It's a very stable
Right.
language.
Right.
But anyway, it's a lovely, and it's got some characters in it that we dropped when Old English became Middle English. We dropped a couple characters from our alphabet that the
Mm-hmm.
Icelanders still
Mm-hmm.
use. Anyway, Martha and I, we'll be here hours talking about this stuff. So I want to go back to Martha. All right, so
Yeah.
we've prepared the house. We
Yep.
did our white tornado. We made our we made our our lasagna of stuff stacked in the room that nobody goes into.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some people call that a culch pile, by the way, named after
Yep.
the pile of old. Anybody from a fishing community or done any kind of like clamming or anything like that, mussels or clams? A culch pile is the pile of old shells and gravel and stuff that you put in the water for the larva to latch onto in order to grow your mussels or your clams.
Yeah.
And it's kind of generically become a meaning to any pile of junk or dirt or gravel. Anyway, so all right, so now the food. We have to talk about the food. So
Of course.
turkey is often used in Thanksgiving, but people will do a Christmas goose, they'll do Christmas chicken, some people will do a turkey for Christmas, but there's a name for the fatty bump at the rear end of the fowl. All of these
Yes.
birds, there's that fatty bump. Why do people call that something weird, Martha? Who thought that they needed to name that?
Well, that's a good question. You know, it
I put
looks
you on the
sort of
spot.
well, as I recall, it looks like a nose, kind of. And
Yeah.
there's a tradition in English and other European languages for sure of names for foods that make fun of the clergy. And in this case,
Oh,
some people who weren't that fond of the Pope, I think, used to call it the Pope's nose. That little
naughty,
that little
naughty.
bump. Yeah, some people call it the parson's nose. You and I love the term Europygium, which is
Oh,
the
I'll put that in
Latinate
chat
term
as
for
well so
that.
you can see that. It's a strange looking
Europygium,
Europygium. It's a good
right,
word. Nice.
right. Which
And
is
then
related.
go ahead.
It's a relative of the English word calipigian, which means having a beautiful derrière. You
A
should probably put
beautiful
that in there.
bottom, a beautiful rear
Yes, a
end.
beautiful bottom.
Thank
Yes.
thank you for noticing, Martha.
Thank goodness for Zoom, right?
And yeah. And then there's the French term, which is
Yep.
le sauterelles. Pardon my poor French, but it means the silly person won't eat it, or literally the fool leaves it there because
Yep.
it's fatty. It's got a ton of flavor in it. That part of a turkey or chicken or other bird has just so much rich flavor there. I've
Mm-hmm.
seen lots of heads nodding in the gallery of pictures here, so I think some people know what we're talking about when it
Oh,
comes to
cool.
these naming this part of the bird, the fatty bump at the end of the bird. If you guys have other words, all means throw them in the chat. I'd love
Please
to see
do.
them, or if you use a parson's nose for that. All right, so you've had your fill, Martha. You've had the sweet potatoes, and you've had the mashed potatoes, and you've had the fried potatoes, and you've had stuffing, and oh, that's Thanksgiving. All right, Christmas. You've had the Christmas ham. You've had the Christmas goose. You've had what else do you eat at Christmas? I don't know. I don't. Christmas is kind of lots of cookies and cakes. That's what I think of for Christmas.
Yep.
But anyway, you're
Yep.
full. What do you say to your host when you're
So
full?
full.
Yeah, you're like stuffed. They're pushing the plate at you for thirds and fourths. What do you say, Martha?
And you say, well, now I say, because I learned this from our listeners, I say, I am sufficiently suffuncified. I never heard that expression growing up, but I would say about once every couple of months, we get an email from a listener who says, I remember my dad used to use this expression. He'd push back from the table and say, I am sufficiently suffuncified. Anything more would be, how does the rest of that go? Something.
Purely obnoxious to my taste. I put it in the chat
Yes.
so everyone can see it. Another version is, my sufficiency is fully sarantified. Any more would be obnoxious to my fastidious taste. It's just a fancy way of refusing your host a very nice offer to fill you even further up.
Yes.
This
Yes,
is
and
when
it's so.
this
Yeah,
is
go
when your
ahead.
stomach and your dessert stomach are full. This is when you're completely full. Everyone knows about
Right,
the dessert
yeah.
stomach, right?
Yeah,
You have
there's a Japanese term for that, right? Your dessert
the
stomach,
dessert stomach.
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but I would say that every couple of months somebody writes us about that because there's so many different versions of that. Forancified,
Yeah.
I can't. There
All
are a
right,
lot of them.
so maybe you've eaten and it's time for some drinks and some conversation, and you get some eggnog. And eggnog is a strange. It's fun to say for one thing.
Mm.
The first part of the word is really easy. Egg. It's got eggs in it, right? It's from about the mid 1700s. Do we know much about the nog part of that? A couple of my resources say origin unknown, but a couple say it might be a kind of ale or beer. Does that sound true to you?
That's all I really know about it. That
Yeah.
nog is an old word for ale.
Yeah, so we're talking
Yeah.
eggs and sugar, milk and cream, maybe rum and brandy or some other liqueur, a nutmeg, can't forget the nutmeg, just to give it that extra
Mm.
little flavor.
Yeah.
Often these days, eggnog is made without alcohol. But so anyway, you're
So
drinking
it
your
doesn't go to your
eggnog.
noggin. Yeah.
Yeah, it goes to your noggin. That's good. You're drinking your eggnog. Maybe you're having something stronger, and you're sitting and you're having conversation, and maybe somebody's politics getting in the way, and you don't want to talk about that. There's a great phrase that we learned about changing the topic when you don't want to talk about what's on the table, right? When somebody brings
Yes.
up politics and you're like, not today. And what we say is, Martha, do you want to give it?
Yeah, we say, do you think the rain will hurt the rhubarb? It's
And we,
just kind of a great way of saying time out.
yeah. And the answer
Let's
is
move
not if
on.
it's in cans.
Yeah.
And we learned this, a lot of our listeners still use this. It's a little old fashioned. Do you think the rain will hurt the rhubarb is a way of just ignoring what people are talking about and changing the subject. And it's such an abrupt non sequitur that it works, even though it's super silly and people kind of get the hint. And do you think the
Mm.
rain will hurt the rhubarb? Not if it's in cans. And it really does the job. But all right, so what do we call ourselves if we're sitting? Okay, first of all, if we're drinking together, technically we're having a symposium, right?
This is correct. This is correct. It
Which is
goes all
weird
the way back.
because, yeah, because a symposium these days doesn't mean what it used to mean.
No, it sounds very fancy and academic and, tweed jackets with patches on the elbows and that kind of thing, a symposium on this and that. But if you go all the way back to ancient Greek, symposium comes from Greek words that literally mean drinking together. The posium in that is related to our word potable. It's all about potions and drinking. And so symposium in its most literal sense, when you go all the way back to ancient Greek, means a drinking party, basically. You may remember Plato's symposium. They were all sitting around drinking, talking about philosophy.
and rhubarb.
And
And speaking of Greek roots, there's a really nice Greek rooted word that means the art of dinner table conversation. And obviously, when you get together with family for the holidays, there's a lot of that.
That's
Right?
right. And ideally what you want to have is dipnosophy. You want to be a dipnosophist. And you probably will have to put that word into the chat because it's a little bit counterintuitive to think about. But it comes from an ancient Greek word that has to do with the art of dinner table conversation.
That's fantastic. Diaphanous. Say that again for us, Martha, so we can all get that.
Dipnosophist.
Dipnosophist. Sometimes I feel like a dipnosophist. Sometimes I just sit in the corner.
But I don't think we're ever sufficiently sophistified a good conversation.
So it turns out that good conversation has something in common with the Christmas tree. They both technically scintillate, right?
Ah, very
It
good,
took you a second
Grant.
to see where I was going with that, right?
Yeah, I was thinking, what? The Christmas tree?
So,
Yeah.
because tinsel, the silvery strands that you put on a Christmas tree, is an etymological cousin of scintillate. So if you have a scintillating conversation, you have a sparkling conversation. It's also related to scintilla. I didn't have a scintilla of a doubt that he would do what he was asked. It means they're all related to a word meaning spark. And so it's
Mm-hmm.
interesting to see that scintilla and scintillate and tinsel, and you can hear it, they're all related to each other. So tinsel is like decorating your tree with spark. You can see in the Zoom image behind me, my tree is sparkling. It's scintillating.
It is
um,
scintillating.
and there's another word when it comes to decorating. Wreath is related to the words rye, as in a twist of the lips. You know, you make a rye grin.
Mm-hmm.
And writhe, of course, you can hear wreath and writhe, and they all go back to an Old English word, wreathen. Is it wreathen or writhen? Meaning to twist. And
Uh-huh.
so, but anyway,
Yeah.
this all leads me to deck the halls, which is another one of our frequently asked questions. Martha, what do we know about deck the halls?
Well,
Why do we say
we're
deck? And do they
well,
only
we're
put them in the hallways? What about the rest of the rooms?
it's taking attention away from your culture pile, right?
That's right. You got to have
Yeah.
this shiny stuff so they won't look at the unread New Yorkers in the corner.
You haven't been to my house in months and you still remember those stacks.
Oh, we all have the
Yeah.
unread New Yorkers in the corner.
Oh yeah. I have lots of copies of The Week too. I love that magazine. But anyway, yeah, we're just decorating the halls, right?
Yeah, so it comes from a old Low German or Flemish word from the 1500s, meaning to cover. You're covering
Hmm.
something, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
then, so the hall here isn't a hallway that connects one room to another. It meant at the time, well, we still use it this way, any large room or indoor space. For example, if you go to a hotel for a professional conference, they might have Hall G or Hall F, and it's a giant
Hmm.
room that seats 600 people. It's not a hallway, it's just
Right.
a
It's not a
big space.
passageway.
So deck the
Hmm.
halls means you're decorating the space where you're going to have dinner and the celebration and dancing. So decking the halls, and once you explain it, it kind of makes a lot of sense. Just have to work your way through it, right? Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. And sometimes you decorate your tree with
yeah.
Christmas pickles. I was talking to you about Christmas pickles.
Martha, tell me all about the
Yes.
pickles. Chris, wait. I want to see you. Raise your hands, everyone on this call, if you know about Christmas pickles, because it was news to me. Anybody? Raise your hands. Nobody? A couple? I see some Christmas pickle. Yes, I see some enthusiastic hands going up about Christmas pickles. Martha, what do we know? What do you know? I don't know anything about Christmas pickles.
I didn't know anything until yesterday morning, and my sister-in-law happened to mention something about Christmas pickles, and I just thought, are you canning tomorrow or what? But and all of a sudden, it's kind of like when you hear a word, and then all of a sudden you start hearing and seeing it everywhere
Yeah.
after you see it for the first time. All of a sudden, I'm running into everybody who knows about Christmas pickles except for me. Apparently, this is a tradition. You can buy Christmas pickle ornaments, and the tradition is that you hide one of those on the tree for the kids, and the kid who finds it on Christmas morning gets an extra gift.
Wait, so we're talking about a wet pickle, a vinegar
Not a real
pickle.
pickle.
Oh, okay.
No,
I was
like
thinking of
like
a real
ceramic
pickle.
or no,
Oh, okay.
ceramic or plastic or glass, and there are all these stories about how this tradition came to be. Lots of people will tell you that it goes all the way back to Germany and this tradition of the Weihnachtsgurke. But if you ask people who speak German, maybe we've got some in the audience. Nobody really knows this term. It might have been something that glass ornament makers tried to popularize in the
Mm-hmm.
late 19th century. What's weird is that it seems to be largely in the Midwest, and in fact, there's a place in Michigan, I think it's called Berrien Springs, that fancies itself the Christmas pickle capital of the world.
Oh,
Go
you know,
figure. So I'm
when you first said Christmas pickle, I was thinking about Mommy and Santa Claus. I didn't know what you were referring to.
okay.
All right, let's see. So we talked about the meal, we talked about the conversation, we
Yeah.
talked about
Mhm.
drinking, but the thing is, there's always food left over. And our language is just littered with some not so common terms for leftovers. Lots of people use something other than the word leftover to talk about
Mhm.
food. And
Mhm.
I wonder how many of these people have heard of.
Well,
How many, raise your hand if you are like my wife and my mother and you leave one bite of food on your plate when you eat. Yeah. Nobody? Okay, yeah, there we go. There's a name for that. It's called the manners bit or the manners piece, as in all that's left is your manners on the plate. And it's a tradition that goes back centuries of just demonstrating that you're not a ravenous glutton, that you have some restraint, and you will leave the one piece on your plate to show that to your host or to the cook or even just to the family. And it's nice, but it's also sometimes called the last button on Jacob's coat,
I
or the
love that. That's
the
great.
the farmer's scrap, or it's also even called the kiss the cook, which I like a lot.
Oh, that's nice,
Um,
especially if
but
you cooked, right?
that's not quite the. I was also thinking about orts. Orts, Martha.
Mhm.
ORT. You know about orts. You guys used to have a website
Well,
called Orts.
I did. It went back in the days when everybody had a blog. I had a website called Martha Barnett's Orts, and I think I learned that term maybe from reading Virginia Woolf, who used that term. But I'm betting that anybody who does crossword puzzles in this crowd knows the term orts because it
Yes.
simply means leftovers.
Yeah. Or, it's a piece. It can just be a bit of anything, really. Um, let's see. Well, one thing I want to talk about is leftovers used to be called relics. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, and not relics as in, pieces, shards of potsherds or shards of pottery, but it was called, before that, it was called relief. So leftovers were known as relief from the 1300s to the 1500s,
Huh.
from one meaning of a French verb having to do with taking away or picking up. It's the food that you would take away or pick up and bring back to the food stores. And then from
Hmm.
about the 1500s to the early 1900s or so, relics from a similar French word meaning remains or something left behind, which is kind of where we get relic in the archaeological sense as well. And then now it's leftovers. And I wonder in a few hundred years what'll be next. It just seems to be leftover foods just seems to generate language. Strange, right?
Strange. Yeah.
You mentioned German when you were talking about the pickles. Do you know about cold duck, the wine called cold duck?
Ah, I know a story about it being a false etymology. Does that ring a bell? I haven't
Maybe.
swatted up my cold duck.
Oh, did you? Well, what I'd heard, you tell me if this is incorrect, is that it's from German where kalte Ende means cold in, referring to the wine dregs.
Mm-hmm.
But a
Mm-hmm.
play on words turns it into kalte Ente, meaning cold
Yep.
duck.
Yes, that's the etymology I'm familiar with. I
Yeah.
thought that there was something else that
So there was
people
this
tried
big
to.
craze during the 70s for cold duck wine, and it's kind of faded now, but you can still find it. But that's basically a wine made from leftovers.
Well, that sounds like the term that you've used in the past. What is it? Minesweeping?
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
what's
Minesweeping. When
that,
you go,
Grant?
well, it's when you're a kid and you go around the house, just picking up any glass that's left unattended and drinking whatever's inside of it. It's like the game on your computer, Minesweeping, where you're trying to find the mines. And there's a really nice picture of me and my brother at 2 or 3 where we've gone around the family reunion drinking sodas and beers. They're all in cans and we can't read. And we're a little drunk because we drank a little too much beer. I see we have a really nice question in chat asking about wassailing, and why it's associated with Christmas. That's a really good one. Most of us just know it from the song, right? Here we come, a wassailing, da, 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 da.
Yeah.
Um, and it comes from some Old English words meaning good health. So you would go from
Wassail,
door
yeah.
to, yeah, you would go from door to door wishing people good health and offering them wine. And then they would offer you something in return. And also you would do it at mealtime. And the reply was, Drinkel, which means let's drink. So wassail, drinkel, and it's kind of this ritual.
Yeah.
And then there was various different drinks with spices and stuff, because lots of alcoholic drinks were spiced for a very long time. It's only in the last few hundred years that unspiced alcohol has become more common. But anyway, there are various drinks that were known to be particular to wassailing and wassailing. So that's pretty much what we know about wassailing. It's Wassail for those of you who need that spelled. So, but we don't really know it beyond the carol in the United States, do we?
I don't use it. No.
No. Okay.
No.
All right, Martha. I'm talking a mile. Okay. You've had a good day. You met with the family. You avoided arguments by talking about the rhubarb. You had some great conversation with friends. Ate a ton of food. Now it's time for your nap. It's time for your postprandial snooze, right? That means your post-meal snooze.
Yeah.
We have a few names for that, right? So your power nap.
Your power nap. Some people call it a disco nap, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, the disco
that
nap
kind of
is like,
dates us.
yeah, well, that's when you gather your energy before you go on to the next party, right?
Yeah.
It's like a quick sleep before you go on to do something else. A cat nap, everyone knows that, where you just do a quick kind of curled up sleep wherever is comfortable. Yeah, so then it's the nap. I want to see what else we've got here. If anybody has any questions, we'll kind of open up the floor to questions. I'm looking at the chat. Maybe our good front porch hosts want to welcome anybody who's raised their hands, and we can do that. We're ready to take any questions that you've got. Feel free.
Yeah.
I know that we've been babbling on, and I hope you're all still interested. You've been incredibly warm and welcoming to stay with us.
I'm not sure anybody is sufficiently suffuncified yet. So why don't we do this? Why don't we give you all about 2 minutes to grab a quick drink of water? We'll put on a quick Casa video just to give everybody a little taste of the community. And then anybody that wants to ask any questions can put them in the chat feature. So at the bottom of your screen, you'll see where it says chat. And if you type any questions in there, then we'll get those to Grant and Martha on the other side of the video. So we'll go and give us 1 second here and we'll make that happen.
He's going in the water with his wetsuit on at 85 years old.
80 what?
85.
Who's 85?
Well, it's not me.
I'm not 85. I'm just a kid.
When we came to Casa de Mañana, 5 children in the family, everyone was very concerned about moving Mom into a retirement home. When they set foot on the premises, everyone wanted to move in, so it took away any reservations that people had.
Yeah, the Casa staff makes it very easy to convert from home living to community living.
It's very, very easy, to become integrated because all the residents were very, very friendly.
The location of the Casa is so perfect.
The setting here, the building, the ocean, the proximity to the village makes Casa de Mañana a really extraordinary place.
The universe is the most creative force I have ever lived with. And that's why I look at the sky and say thank you for the entertainment, for the glory.
I love it, of course, it's wonderful. And the people here are just fabulous.
I think it feels like family here. I mean, we came to Casa de Mañana because we wanted a place for Mom where not only could all the family come and visit and be a part of her lives, but she'd meet new people. And that has been the biggest plus in her life, is all the new people that she's met.
I love it because I essentially can live the way I want to.
I like waking up in the morning knowing that I can choose the way the day is going to go. We're in control of what happened every day, and that's very special.
At first it was the food. We loved the food. But after we moved in, what we discovered was that the people here are extraordinary. They're well educated, they're friendly, they're fun, they're active, and they are extraordinary.
Casa de Mañana is a primo place to be able to live.
So appreciate, we do have some questions that came into the chat room, and continue sending them in. Grant and Martha, hopefully you can see those, and I'll turn it back over to you to answer some of these questions that people are putting in.
Thank you. That's a lovely video.
Thanks.
We have been to Casa as well, and it is literally across from the ocean. If you still have a good arm, you can toss a baseball from the front lawn into the sea.
I think I could.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, it's real lovely down there. And the facility is exquisite, and the people are very nice, as you can see here. All right, we've got some great questions here. I'm going to start with the last one first. When did season's greetings become popular around holiday time? I have friends who seem to think it's part of a war on Christmas. This is a common question, and we get this pretty regularly. First, there's no war on Christmas. Christmas has always kind of been a major holiday in the United States. People have been saying season's greetings for a really long time. It's nothing new. And as a matter of fact, the Merry Christmas and the Happy Christmas are a little newer than you might think that they are. I should say that Happy Christmas and Merry Christmas kind of have an Atlantic divide. Happy Christmas is more common in the UK and Ireland, and Merry Christmas, of course, is more common in North America. Some prefer Happy because to them, Merry kind of sounds like drinking and debauchery are going to happen near the birthday of Christ. So Merry just is, but Merry used to have a little different meaning. It wasn't really about making merry. It was just a little more about goodwill and intentions. So, so meanings have changed while the expressions themselves have not. So season's greetings, I don't have an exact date on that, but my impression is, what's that, Martha?
I don't either.
Yeah, I don't have an exact date on that, but it's, I want to say, I can look here a second, if you give me a second. I can want to say hundreds of years. So typically.
Grant has a million databases at his fingertips.
I got the stuff. I got the mots.
He's got the mots.
All right, the other question that we have here, what does the phrase pearl clutching mean? Martha, what do you know about that?
Pearl clutching. You know, I was thinking about the term pearl clutching a lot because I've been binging on The Crown on Netflix. Have you been watching that? About the royalty in England, and at least in the first couple of seasons, Claire Foy, playing the Queen, wears pearls in almost every single episode. And I was thinking about that term because if you're shocked and offended by something, you're going to be clutching at your pearls. So it doesn't have anything to do with diving into the ocean and clutching pearls from the oysters. I don't have any, I don't know how old that expression is. Do you, Grant?
No, but I do know it reminds me of a bunch of other expressions, including handbags on the lawn, which
I was thinking
or handbags on the green, which is, it's just meant to,
wigs on the green.
Wigs on the green too. It's just meant to say like, you know, you're doing this, your hand on your chest. It's just meant to suggest kind of, you're not really outraged. You're kind of faking outrage. There's a little bit of like, it's not really full on, I'm angry about this. It's just like, oh, I do declare. It's more like that kind of outrage.
Yeah, they're not necessarily genuine pearls.
Yeah, fake pearls. Yeah, that's for sure. What's funny is I'm looking here and I see that people have been complaining about the season's greetings thing for at least 40 years. I see that William Sapphire handled a bunch of questions about that. So,
oh, wow. You used to work with him.
I don't work with. I helped him out. He helped me get a leg up when I was getting started. He would give me credit in his column. That was always nice. You know, he'd call me up and say, I need some help. Help me find the origin of this, and that's nice. All right, more questions, anyone? Because we can go for hours if you want. Oh, while we're talking about the war on Christmas, another one of the terms that often comes up is is Xmas instead of Christmas, is that pejorative against Jesus Christ? Is it derogatory? And it isn't. Martha, as a Greek scholar, you know something about this.
Well, that's the first letter, the Greek letter he or chi, as we say in English, is the first letter of the word Christos in ancient Greek, and so it's associated with that letter. It has nothing to do with Xing out Christ. It's actually the first letter of his name.
And it was used in theological circles among scholars and religious folk as early as the 12th century in English. So it's got a long history of being used by people who very much have a vested interest in the religion and Christ and the church and the sacredness of the beliefs there. Oh, somebody's asking about Mele Kalikimaka. Well, we're all going to have to sing the Elvis song. Mele Kalikimaka. Mele Kalikimaka is a rendering of Merry Christmas in Hawaiian because they lack certain consonants and certain vowels. They have to be replaced with approximate consonants and approximate vowels to kind of get to the way Merry Christmas sounds in English. So Mele Kalikimaka does that, where the R is replaced by an L and da-da-da-da, and so that's what you get is Mele Kalikimaka. Merry Christmas.
I like the sound of that.
Yeah, it's a lovely song. Looking for it on the internet. Mele Kalikimaka. So I forget how the rest of it goes. That's the only part I remember. Who else? Somebody's asking about pearl clutching again, but we answered that one. Anybody else here? Oh, wassail we answered. Look at all these happy faces. Anybody? Okay. And then I'm looking here at I got a ton of stuff. Oh, one of my favorite etymologies related to Christmas. Now, it's a little bit disputed, but I'm going to share it anyway, is that mistletoe comes from two words that probably mean dung twig, as in manure twig. So when you're kissing your sweetie under the dung twig, I don't know what that says about the two of you. and the story goes that, go ahead. No, you go.
You go ahead.
You go. You go.
Well, there are various stories about why mistletoe would be associated with dung twig. I think the idea is that it comes from the name of it has to do with the thrush, the bird that eats seeds and deposits the seeds on the twigs.
In its waste. Yeah, and so the waste of the bird helps the seeds grow. Yeah.
And it's related to the German word Mist. Those of you who speak German will know that mist also means dung, which caused problems in Canada when Canada marketed Canadian mist, or caused problems in Germany when the product came out called Canadian Mist. You know, some of those brand name stories are apocryphal, but I don't think that one is. Canadian Mist did not do well.
Canadian poo. That's terrible, Martha.
In Germany.
Well, somebody is asking a food question here, and although we love food and words, this one might be beyond us. When did the Yule log become a pastry, Martha? Any idea?
Did the Yule log become a pastry?
Yeah, now it's kind of like this like rolled cake that you cut. For most people in the United States, we don't ever actually see the fire. We see the log, right?
Oh, okay. Well,
we see the pastry.
That's a new one on me. I'll have to watch more episodes of the British Baking Show and see if they talk about it. I mean, it's yet another example of the many foods that are named for what they look like, what they resemble, as opposed to some other name. Squashed fly biscuit, for example, in Britain, has little mushed raisins in it.
I turned on my Yule log.
Grant, it looks like you're on fire. This conversation is lit. Clearly. Interesting.
I was saving that for this part of the conversation, Martha. All right, they're giving us the hook, Martha. Last chance for questions. All right, last chance. I want to thank you for putting up with our nonsense, everyone. It's been a real delight. Martha and I know that you have a lot of ways to spend your time, and we're happy that you spent it with us. And we want to thank you very much for making us a part of your day. We appreciate the folks at Front Porch also sharing this moment with us and letting us be a part of their community, and this has just been good for us. You can hear that we're having a really good time doing this. Do check out the radio show if you get a chance. We are heard on the radio. You can hear all of our hundreds of past episodes on our website. There's no charge. It's family friendly, and you can always call us. And if you ever get to San Diego to check out Casa, let them know that you're in town and maybe we can come see you. Anyway, take care, and we'll turn it back over to the Casa folks. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you both so much. Really, really, really appreciated the presentation, and I hope you all enjoyed it as much too. So we're going to end things today with a short video, probably about 4 or 5 minute video on Casa's newest part of their community, which is their dining room. And so hopefully you'll all stick around and check that out. At the end of the video, this call's over. Our fun for the day is ended and our time together is coming to an end, but just so appreciate everybody taking the time to join us today. And as Grant said, we'd love to have you down to Casa and show you around for a tour and get to meet some of the really interesting and really fun residents as well. So thank you so much and wish you a very happy holidays from all of us at Front Porch.
Instead of eating in our room, we don't have to watch the news while we eat. It's good just to hear other people's voices in the room.
Okay.
And like being in a restaurant atmosphere.
Right.
Comfortable seats and the table and the silverware.
Huh?
No chopsticks though. Here, salute to you too. Here you go.
It's been wonderful. After eating so much elsewhere in our room, in our apartment, and to come back to a beautiful dining room, it's very special. The acoustics are wonderful. The ambience is fantastic. The new design is terrific. Everything seems to be very conducive to a fine dining experience.